Story 1. The Locked Attic. I never thought an old house could feel so alive. When my family moved into the 1920 Victorian home, it seemed charming, almost picturesque. But there was one part of the house we never used: the attic. The door was locked with a rusty latch, and my parents said it had been sealed for decades. Naturally, curiosity got the better of me. One night, I heard soft scratching sounds coming from upstairs. At first, I thought it was just the wind rattling the windows. But then it got louder, deliberate, like claws dragging across wood. I froze in my room, heart pounding, listening as the noise circled the house. I finally mustered the courage to get a flashlight and check. The hallway was dark and narrow, the floorboards groaning under my weight. As I approached the attic door, the scratching stopped. Silence swallowed the house. I hesitated before my hand touched the cold metal latch. With a creak, the door opened, revealing dust and old furniture covered in white sheets. But then I saw a small, dirty handprint on the wall, smudged as if someone had pressed their palm there recently. I stepped back, thinking maybe I was imagining it, but the chill in the air told me I wasn't. I explored further, shining the flashlight around. Cobwebs draped the corners, and the smell of mold filled my nose. Then I noticed the floorboards near a large trunk seemed scratched, like someone or something had been digging. My stomach sank. Suddenly, I felt a tap on my shoulder. Spinning around, I saw nothing, just the shadows dancing in the flashlight beam. My breathing quickened, and I realized the attic door had slammed shut on its own. I ran down the stairs, not daring to look back. The next day, I told my parents. They told me the attic had been sealed after the previous owner, his daughter, mysteriously vanished decades ago. She was never found, and the locals whispered about her ghost. I laughed it off nervously, but that night I couldn't sleep. Kept hearing whispers, low and almost pleading, coming from the ceiling above my room. Sometimes I thought I could make out a child's voice calling my name. I tried to ignore it, but the scratching came back, louder and more frantic than before. One evening, I sneaked back to the attic, determined to see the truth. As I opened the door, a cold gust of air hit me, and I saw shadows moving under the sheets. Then I saw the small handprint again, but this time it was wet, like someone had just touched it. A whisper slithered across my ears. "Help me." I stumbled back in horror, tripping over the steps and nearly falling. When I looked back, the handprint had vanished, leaving nothing but the old wood and dust. I told my parents again, but they only warned me to stay out. That night, I couldn't resist. I crept upstairs once more and saw a tiny figure at the far end of the attic, a girl, pale and thin, staring at me with hollow eyes. I tried to speak, but no sound came out. She raised a finger to her lips, then pointed toward the trunk. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were old toys, a diary, and a single, tiny shoe covered in dust. The moment I touched the diary, the attic lights flickered, and the girl disappeared. Only her whisper remained, repeating over and over, "Find me. Find me." I left the house the next day and never went back. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear scratching from above. And I wonder if she is still waiting for someone to open the trunk and finally set her free. I never found out what happened to her, and maybe I never want to. Some doors are meant to stay locked, and some spirits are never meant to rest. Story 2. The Woman in the Hallway. It happened when I was 16. My parents had left for the weekend, and I had the house to myself. It was the first time I ever slept in the house alone, and I was excited. But by midnight, that excitement turned into something else entirely. I was watching TV in the living room when I noticed movement in the hallway. Just a shadow, at first like someone had walked past the door. I muted the TV. Silence filled the room. My heart started to beat a little faster. I called out, "Hello?" But no one answered. I convinced myself I was just paranoid and turned the volume back up. Not 5 minutes later, I saw it again. The shadow was clearer this time. I could make out the outline of a woman, tall and thin, standing just beyond the hallway entrance. My blood ran cold. I slowly reached for my phone, ready to dial someone, but when I blinked, she was gone. I tried to laugh it off, telling myself it was just the light from the TV, but then something made the wooden floor creak inside the hallway. One step, then another, slowly, closer. I turned off the TV completely and sat in the dark, listening. The sound of soft footsteps approached the living room. My hand shook as I turned the flashlight on my phone. The light illuminated the hallway entrance. At first, there was nothing. But then I saw her. A woman with long black hair covering most of her face, wearing what looked like a torn white nightgown. Her feet were bare, and her skin was ashen, almost gray. She didn't walk normally. She moved like her joints were too loose, like a puppet. Step by step, she tilted her head, staring at me from behind the curtain of hair. I backed away slowly, my phone slipping from my hand. The sound of it hitting the floor echoed like a gunshot. I ran upstairs, slammed my bedroom door, and locked it. I hid in the corner, whispering to myself. Then I heard the creaking again, this time on the stairs, slow and deliberate. She was coming up. The sound stopped outside my bedroom door. I could hear breathing on the other side. Long, raspy breaths. For what felt like an eternity, nothing happened. Then, a whisper. A woman's voice, soft and broken. "Let me in." I screamed and called the police. By the time they arrived, no one was in the house. No signs of forced entry. They told me it was probably a prank or my imagination. But when they checked the hallway floor, they found something no one could explain. A set of small, wet footprints. Bare feet, leading from the hallway to the bottom of my stairs. Going back. Story 3. The Mirror in the Woods. A few years ago, my cousin and I were exploring an abandoned cabin deep in the woods behind our neighborhood. It was the kind of place kids dared each other to visit, but no one actually stayed long. Inside the cabin, everything was rotten and covered in vines. But the strangest thing was in the center of the living room, an old, full-length mirror. The mirror didn't reflect the room properly. It was like the reflection lagged just a second behind reality. When I waved my hand, my reflection moved too slowly. My cousin thought it was hilarious and started making faces at it. I didn't laugh. There was something wrong with that mirror. The air felt cold around it. We decided to leave after a few minutes, but just before we stepped outside, I glanced at the mirror one last time. My cousin was right behind me in real life. But in the reflection, he wasn't there. I stared, frozen. Then slowly, something else appeared behind me in the mirror. A tall, dark figure with no face. I screamed and ran outside. My cousin followed, confused. I told him what I saw, but when he looked, the mirror was normal again. He laughed it off. We didn't talk about it again for years, but the nightmares started after that night. Every night, I'd dream about the woods, about that mirror. And I'd see the faceless figure stepping closer to me, one step at a time, always reaching. I started waking up at exactly 3:03 a.m., drenched in sweat. Then, things in my room began to move. Some more at first drawers open, closet door ajar. Then, the mirror appeared. It wasn't the same one, but it was similar. Someone had left a full-length mirror leaning against our fence. No one knew where it came from. My mom brought it inside, thinking someone threw it away. I lost it. I begged her to get rid of it, but she didn't understand why I was so terrified. That night, I woke up again at 3:03 a.m. My mirror was fogged over, like someone had been breathing on it from the other side. I wiped the fog away. Hide my reflection was the figure, tall, faceless, closer than ever before. I screamed and ran to my parents' room. They checked, but of course, nothing was there. I refused to sleep in that room again. Eventually, they moved the mirror to the basement. But some nights, when I passed by the basement door, I swear I could hear tapping, coming from the mirror, like it's waiting. Story 4, the room next door. When I moved into my new apartment, the landlord told me the unit next to mine was empty. It was supposed to stay that way for a few months. So when I started hearing noises coming from that room at night, I tried to brush it off. Old buildings make sounds. That's what I told myself. The first night, it was just faint knocking. The second night, I heard footsteps dragging slowly across the floor. By the third night, I could hear whispering, a low, unintelligible voice through the wall, like someone having a conversation with themselves. I asked the landlord the next morning if someone had moved in. He said no one had the keys to that unit yet. He even showed me the inside. Empty. Completely empty. But there was something strange in the far corner of the living room. A large stain on the wall. It looked almost like a handprint. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 1:30 a.m., I heard it again. A soft tapping, right on the other side of my bedroom wall. Then a whisper. Clear this time. I'm here. I froze. I didn't breathe. It whispered again, louder. I'm here. I got up, pressed my ear against the wall, and instantly regretted it. A scream erupted from the other side. A high-pitched, distorted shriek that rattled my bones. Stumbled back, shaking. My neighbor upstairs came down, asking if I was okay. But he hadn't heard a thing. The next day, I asked the landlord again. He seemed nervous. He finally admitted something. Years ago, someone had died in that unit. A woman. No one lived there since. He said he didn't want to scare new tenants. Tried sleeping in the living room after that. But the whispering followed me. Through the walls, through the vents. Always the same words. I'm here. Then, one night, I heard a door open from the other side. Then slow footsteps crossed the hall. When I opened my eyes, the doorknob to my own apartment was turning from the inside, but I had locked it. I grabbed my phone, ready to call for help, but before I could dial, the whisper came from right behind me this time. Not through the wall, not from next door, from inside my room. I'm here. Which story scared you the most? Comment below and subscribe for more true horror stories. Turn on notifications so you never miss a chilling tale.